Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I was going to lead with the economy. I got something to show you, an excellent graph my wife sent me yesterday. We'll get to that in a moment. But this is the biggest story of a while because of its implications. Russia claims the U.S. is behind the alleged Ukrainian drone attack. The accusation, made without citing any evidence, comes less than 24 hours after Moscow said that it foiled an overnight drone strike on a building that's at the heart of the country's government and Putin's residence. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov claimed Thursday that Washington had masterminded the incident. The U.S. swiftly rejected the accusation, saying it had nothing to do with it, as did the Ukraine. So nuclear war is the biggest thing, right? It's the biggest story. Other global catastrophes, anything that might happen. The economy imploding, the food system imploding, all these things. Any kind of apocalyptic event that would bring down the system, the worst one is nuclear war. If there is going to be a nuclear war, and I believe there is, that will be the worst. That'll, contaminate the planet for, maybe millions of years. It'll negatively affect the abundant cycle that we're in, and it'll bring everything else down, economies, all the other things, right? And devastation that will be unimaginable. And so, for those of you who are not aware of this, many of you are. I do this Sajmarg meditation, and there are these channeled messages called Whispers of the Brighter World. And there are something like 20,000 of them. The most ever recorded, these types of messages a person, a medium, receiving from a divine source. It was this French woman. I've talked about her in the past, somebody who was, basically crippled by a horse accident when she was a kid, and she was kind of a shut-in, had, health problems, and was in serious pain her whole life, but she was a gifted medium. And she channeled messages, particularly from the second master Babaji of the Sajmarg system. And there are these prophecies that were given. And a lot of them are pretty bleak. I mean, it's just a small part of the overall messages. And I don't care if you believe it or not. I'm not selling you anything here. But I have this information, and I've shared it in various videos, and there's no way to validate them. I can't prove that these things are going to happen. Obviously, they're predictions of the future. But we can say that, this is a possibility. And if it is going to happen, then having the information is probably a good thing. Just in terms of preparation and, just thinking about everything in terms of this could end tomorrow, our system. So I want to read two of these messages here. This is the first one. This is, I can make it bigger here. Friday, December 29th, 2008 a.m. Nuclear power will ruin the world. This badly controlled power is demonic. One day, man being overwhelmed by its power. Upheavals that will change the world will have their origin in it. It has much wider implications than you could imagine, and which contribute to the destabilizing the planet, destabilizing the balance of this planet. In this matter also, man plays with fire without actually being aware of the detrimental consequences for humanity. A natural energy will replace all that is currently used and which are harmful to man. Human knowledge does not allow its use for the time being. These secrets will be revealed to men of goodwill who will look into an inspired scientific research. That energy will be non-polluting and not very expensive. Those with money power will not be content with it. Only the absolute necessity for the survival of the world will prevail. This time is not going to happen tomorrow. The earth will go through great changes before getting into that. These prophecies do not concern you. You are undergoing the damaging effects of this insidious pollution, which will lead the world to collapsing, but you can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. Then protect yourself as well as possible from these harmful effects and pray for your brothers of the future, Babaji. And so he predicts a lot of upheavals in these messages. And, he's saying that they're all rooted in this demonic nuclear power, which we'll get more into in a moment. But here's another message. Wednesday, February 28th, 2001, 9 a.m. In a quarter of a century, so this is 2025, 26. It's in February of 2001, so it would be, half a year, 25 years from then would be February 2026. In a quarter of a century, the Earth will experience a major turbulence. That will be the beginning of a cycle where Earthmen will find it very difficult to go through. Fire will literally beat down on certain parts of the world, whereas torrents of rain will pour over others. Cataclysms will follow one after another for many long years, keeping men frightened. Many will turn toward a supreme God, beseeching his forgiveness for more and more aberrant behaviors, as well as for the maltreatment imposed on their nourishing mother, the earth. The failure to respect the elements will lead to effects generating terror among the population of the end of the century. That would be the end of this century. In future ages, the present layout of the continents will be shattered, maps will need revising, yet the creatures inhabiting this planet will have more than enough to do in order to survive, rather than dealing with those details. Adam, ATOM, will turn against mankind, who will not have been able to harness it, and its lightning power will be devastating. The time for punishment for such conceit will take place as hard as it can, and man, paying for his ancestors' glaring mistakes, will suffer without having any control over the situation. The transformation of this planet will go through all these cataclysms in order to be effectively completed, Babaji. And so you can, think about those things the way you want to think about them, right? I mean, they're not as valid for you, or they're not an authority to you, or whatever, because of not doing the meditation or having it proven to you the way it has for me. But for me, I believe these things are going to happen. And partly because I think all of us who grew up in the 80s when there was tension between Russia and America, and that subsided with the collapse of, what used to be called the Soviet Union and is whatever it is now. Things sort of dissipated, but there was always this sense that there would be nuclear war. Whenever there is a weapon created, it gets used. People don't build things to not use them, right? And if you look at what's happening in the world today, there's a breakdown in morality. I mean, it's like apocalyptic already, right? Apocalyptic. Just everything that's going on in terms of human beings breaking down. There's all the AI stuff now, of course, all the computer addicted stuff, the widespread use of porn, kids being exposed to, inappropriate material at a young age, kids growing up on the internet without human interaction, the breakdown of the family, and then just all the beliefs and things that people have out there, all the craziness, and the economy imploding, and then the tensions growing again, and we're closer to World War III than ever before. So when I grew up, there was no accusations of America trying to assassinate the leader of Russia. That didn't exist. And, that's war talk, right? We're already engaged in war. The Ukraine is, war between America and Russia. And it's a proxy war like right now. But it's war. And as it escalates, which it inevitably will, and China maybe gets involved, who knows what happens here, it only ends up in one place, and that's nuclear war. Russia is depleted and can't sustain, couldn't win a war against America in, military versus military. But they have nuclear weapons. And it seems like the powers that be, America is pushing for this. They seem to be pushing for war with Russia and nuclear war. So we're much closer, like I said, than ever before. And we're 2 years away from the first so-called event here, from these prophecies that I read in 2005. So it was 20 years. I'm like, well, that won't happen for 20 years. And now, and now 18 of those years have passed, and I'm looking at it like, well, if these prophecies are true, then something big is going to happen in, a couple of years. There's also there's also a prophecy about the poles reversing themselves, which could be brought on by nuclear warfare as well. So, all of that. And it just feels like, the Apocalaughs, you think about all the apocalyptic movies and all the stuff that's going on. doomsday, the depression of the youth. The youth is growing up feeling hopeless, and just all the ways that everything's playing out right now. It just feels like this is, we're heading towards that. And this is a really big step towards that. I mean, it just is. So my wife sent me this. This was all the banks that collapsed. You can see the majority of the collapse happened here in 2008. There was one large bank, Washington Mutual Bank. And then here we have First Republic Bank, that's almost as big as this one. Silicon Valley Bank, this is 2023. And Signature Bank. So the size of these banks that have collapsed, again, not much here. Banks were doing pretty well up until 2008. Then all these small banks, and all these small banks being absorbed or, disappearing altogether, being absorbed by some of the bigger banks. But the idea was the bigger banks were too big to fail, right? And so all these small banks, credit unions, whatever they are, they failed over the years, and it's happening quite a bit. And then it tailed off, here. And then these are the Trump years when he was, so pro-banking and making it, allowing deregulating everything, which caused, problems or whatever it is. But now you have these three major banks, and it's eclipsing what happened here in only 1 year, right? This is over a period of time here. An excellent graph, and it just something that you can, fully understand the implications here of what's going on with the economy. Because what the failure of 2008, this is just the beginning of that, right? And these, this is going to be much more massive when it starts to, this is just the tip of the iceberg. One of my viewers sent me this. This is from, it's called Cobras Recovery Plan.
Without a chute. Read 'em and weep, fellas. I got a...
So this guy's about to win. This is G.I. Joe. He was just about to win some poker money. Yeah! And all the money just disappears.
Did all of your cash just do the big flash?
His cash just do the big flash.
Due to the financial irresponsibility and incompetence of your leaders, Cobra has found it necessary to restructure your nation's economy.
Okay, so they're getting rid of cash. What's happening?
We have begun by eliminating the worthless green paper, which your government has deceived you into believing is valuable.
Kaboom! Cobra's a truther.
There, all goods will be exchanged for Cobra currency.
Kaboom! Okay, so I want to cover more of this Tucker Carlson tweet or exchange email or whatever it was.
8 years. It has to do with the acceptability and ubiquity of just open, explicit racism. Now,
this wasn't open and explicit, it was a text.
I don't want to say our politics themselves in substance have become more racist. I think it's hard to say. But I do think, I think a lot of people feel there's been a noticeable shift in just the kinds of things that people, politicians, public officials, will say openly in public. And of course, Donald Trump was the pioneer of all this, starting with his very first day as a president.
You mean saying what they actually believe? This is what this guy's saying. That there are people now willing to say what they actually believe. And that's wrong. Like everyone's supposed to lie and put on a show. But most people have negative, hateful thoughts. They have selfish thoughts. They have, hostile thoughts, antisocial thoughts. And, some of those people, all of us have negative thoughts at one time or another. And some people, they really believe it and talk about these thoughts in private, but they don't make it public. And this guy's saying, well, keep those thoughts to yourself. That's what he's saying here.
Presidential candidate when he came down that dopey escalator at Trump Tower and called Mexican immigrants rapists. A man who tried to ban Muslims from traveling the United States, 1 billion of them, referred to African nations as S-hole countries. This is a guy that said that a group of non-white progressive American congresswomen should go back to the countries they came from and led a crowd in a chant of that, more or less. He attacked the American federal judge presiding over his fraud case against his bogus university, saying he could not be impartial because he's Mexican. All of it just bog standard, appalling, disgusting racism, right?
Yeah, and you don't believe anything on a similar level. Maybe not the same things, right? But these are these guys who pose, like all these posers, all these fakers, all these people that, adhere to, a socialized, social constraints of what's considered socially appropriate behaviors. And now that's because of the internet, people are more honest about their depravity, about their whatever their beliefs are, right? And, that's at least a step towards truth, because these guys just fake everything. Like, that's why they're unwatchable. They're not, representing what they truly are, what they believe. And they condemn things that, behind closed doors, they, either agree with or they have similar type beliefs, even if it's not exactly the same, construct.
And he got away with it with very few consequences. Though, I have to say,
Again, what was the consequences be? You're going to lock him up? Like, there has to be some sort of, you're saying mass censorship. They deplatformed him, right?
I do think it helped turn him into such a reviled figure with a favorability rating of just 25%, according to one recent poll. So it's not like he's winning enormous popularity contests with this shtick. But Donald Trump had a partner in this same project.
Is it Tucker?
Of bringing racism out into the open.
Is it Tucker?
That man, of course, is the now disgraced ex-cable news host, Tucker Carlson, who once he took over for the disgraced ex-cable news host before him, I know it's hard to keep track, used his hour to regularly spew pretty blatant, hateful, racist views. He attacks immigrants, for example, because they make America, quote, dirtier. He referred to the majority black city of Baltimore as one of the worst places in the Western Hemisphere, calling it a little bit of Haiti in the mid-Atlantic. He also, while he was doing that, claimed that white supremacy is a hoax. What's white supremacy? What are you talking about? Define it for me. The New York Times.
Okay, so white supremacy is a fringe belief, right? When things break down along racial lines and you guys are all promoting this division, then those things come into play. That's when people end up going, it's something that's already happening where demographics are feeling like they have to, stand together. And, the piece of the pie shrinks, the economic resources shrink, and people are set against each other, right? Divide and conquer. And so his saying these things, in terms of white supremacy, I mean, there's prejudice, there's racism, there's things that people believe, but then there's organizations where people are organized based on racial lines. And that's something that's becoming more prevalent because of the way that the media and the politicians have framed these narratives, right? I mean, this is completely constructed as a way to, you can't say that you're not pulling for this, that you're not wanting people to view other demographics as threatening, because that's all these guys talk about on Fox News and on MSNBC and CNN and all the rest of it, right? Social media. It's something they're creating,
Times concluded, after analyzing over 1,000 episodes of his program, that Tucker, quote, constructed what may be the most racist show in the history of cable news. And I think that judgment was likely correct. And he was obviously...
You think it is?
Not hiding any of this. This wasn't done in some secret back room. It was the program, readily accessible, night in, night out, to anyone with a cable box, including the Fox News executives. People have been writing and talking about it for years, which is why it's a little hard to believe that the thing that ultimately did Tucker in at Fox...
These are all liberal papers, right? Who have their own, cultural biases and their own shtick and their own BS.
...was one private racist text message. But that is the latest reporting. Remember last week we brought you this story about a mystery message that helped lead to the breaking point between Fox and Tucker Carlson. According to the New York Times, private messages discovered on the eve of the Dominion voting system's defamation trial, which would subsequently be settled, showed him making highly offensive and crude remarks that went beyond the inflammatory, often racist comments of his primetime show and anything disclosed in the lead up to the trial.
Fox doesn't care about this. Fox has been race baiting, and Fox is targeting a white audience. Fox is going after a certain, white Republican audience. And Fox doesn't care about any of these things, right? And for these guys to promote this, because they talk about how much they hate Fox, and to promote these ideas that Fox had a problem with anything that was, sort of racially incitement from Tucker is ridiculous, right? Rupert Murdoch and those guys are racist and sexist and all those things. It's the worst network. They're all depraved in one way or another. And that's Fox's way of being depraved, and they're cultivating the fears in their audience. They're anti-immigration, they're anti all these things. Anti-Muslim, they're all these things that, they've been for years, right? And for them to come out and say that Tucker crossed some line here, and then the mainstream media, the liberal media, to buy into that, it's ridiculous.
Well, today, the Times published that secret message. I'm not going to read you the entire text, which is a long missive that Tucker sent to one of his producers, and life is short.
So this is from January 7th, 2021. Well over 2 years ago, right? And Fox has just got around to firing this guy, right? Like, this is the hypocrisy. This guy's not claiming the date here. They're releasing this to, do as much damage to Tucker as they can, right? They're trying to, that's what Fox is doing. This is an ugly breakup, and Fox is releasing everything they have on this guy. And they're doing it slowly. Like, it's not all, like, it's not a document dump where they get it out and it's going to go on for a while. And Fox is doing this for their own, purposes. It's not going to help them. It's going to disenfranchise them with their audience, but it feeds into these liberal narratives, right? Now, what he said here is pretty messed up. What Tucker said, like, he's a weird guy, right? He's strange, and this is certainly what I would consider racist and untrue. But let's let him read this here.
It was the day after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. He talks about watching a video and rooting for Trump supporters to beat up and even kill an alleged member of Antifa before realizing there was something horrible about that impulse. Whatever. The key line is this, quote, "It was 3 against 1 at least. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable, obviously. It's not how white men fight." It's not how white men fight.
We missed out the part where the guy said Tucker Carlson said he was rooting for the Antifa guy to get killed, right? So this is, inflammatory imagery that was sent out all over the place, right? The January, the big event in January, they that was sent out to, create fear and anger in the Democratic, liberal base, right? And the stuff that was Antifa and the stuff to do with BLM was sent out to piss off and provoke the Republicans and create this division that, we don't even know if these things were real. Like, some of them seem fake and contrived, and all this information was being sent out throughout the internet. They talk about fake news, but all this stuff was sent out on both sides to make you hate the other side. And that's how they divide and conquer, right? Clearly, that's what they're doing. And this guy, this smug, look at him, like, just...
I have a sense of the kind of videos and the kind of websites you're reading if that phrase just jumps into your fingers on the phone. Not how white men fight. So,
I talked about that being inaccurate, Tucker saying that, because, white men, in terms of the history of white fighting, white, colonization, things like that, it wasn't fair, right? When England and France and Spain and these European countries went and colonized countries, it wasn't a fair fight, right? And he's making it sound like that's not what white people do. And come on, like, historically, like, be honest about the history of white people and, people in general. Most invading groups And it could be, tribal groups. It's going back to, this is how warfare works. They want an advantage, right? When you attack, like just in terms of hunting, when like Donald Trump's obnoxious kids going out and big game hunting, it's not fair, right? The animal doesn't have a chance to get you. Like you're sitting in some bunker someplace with a high-powered rifle and a scope, and you're picking off animals while they're not. Again, if you're doing it for food, it's one thing, but trophy hunting, it's the ultimate in bullying and having an unfair advantage. You're not going out with a spear and trying to kill a lion, as some test of your courage. You're in a situation where you're not really at risk at all, and the animal's at a total disadvantage, right? Well, anyways, let's move on here. Okay, a few more things to get to here. My Apocalaughs Now channel, I think I can upload again. I tried it and they didn't stop me. So probably on Saturday I'll make a Hollywood celebrity dropping like flies. I'll just have to get reorganized. And we'll see if that happens. I'll mention it on my video tomorrow as well. But this one, Canada moves forward on giving gene editing the conventional plant breeding stamp of approval. Will handle crop cultivators that contain gene editing as part of the breeding process. So that's not good. Jamie Foxx breaks silence amid medical emergency long-term hospitalization. And so, appreciate all the love, feeling blessed, he wrote on his Instagram page. There's some celebrities here. Jeremy Renner, sending you strength and love. Your situation's a little bit different, Jeremy. But anyways, that happened. He's at least able to post on Instagram through a surrogate. But they still haven't said what his emergency health situation was. Jackson Holmes, Patrick Holmes' brother, arrested for aggravated sexual assault. I think he just tried to... and charged with aggravated sexual assault on Wednesday, stemming from an alleged incident at the Kansas City restaurant in February, according to TMZ. Jackson, a 22-year-old social media influencer who garnered popularity on TikTok, is accused of sexually and physically assaulting the owner of an Aspen restaurant lounge in Overland Park on February 25th, with the 40-year-old woman alleging he forcibly tried to kiss her multiple times. So there it is there. So that happened. Priyanka Chopra, botched plastic surgery caused deep depression. She had what she said is a polyp in her nasal cavity removed. Sounds like that's BS. And she looked completely different and went into deep, deep depression. You know how superficial that sounds? She went into deep, deep depression. House subpoenas FBI file on Biden role in criminal scheme as new whistleblower emerges. In a stunning development, the House Oversight Committee issued a subpoena Wednesday for an FBI file that a whistleblower said links President Biden to a criminal scheme involving money for policy decisions during his vice presidency. Well, we already know that happened. And so it's just like with Trump. When I see him in jail, I see him in jail. Otherwise, it's all BS, right? When I see Biden or Trump in jail, or impeached in this case, then I'll believe this is a real story. Aaron and Nick Carter's mother arrested on suspicion of battery over alleged TV remote dispute. Sheriff says Jane Schneck has since been released on a $100 bond. Quite the criminal there. We saw her on the show with Corey Feldman, like Celebrity Therapy. And obviously she's having issues because she no longer has milk for her family.
That I supplied milk to my family?
But Aaron referred to as a momager. And she was a momager who, there they are together there. And, how that all turned out. Harlan Crow paid for Clarence Thomas' grandnephew's private school tuition, report says. A former school administrator told ProPublica the GOP mega donor also paid tuition at a second boarding school. You know, again, when he's in jail or whatever, thrown off the Supreme Court, let me know. Stunned. Kevin Costner responds to wife's Christine Baumgartner's divorce filing. He was stunned. Never saw it coming. Maria Menounos on pancreatic cancer. You know, you're not going to be okay. Apparently, she was on the Today Show with one Hoda Kotb.
Back in 2017, Maria was shocked to discover that she had a benign brain tumor. She had
That's right, brain tumor. So she's had brain tumor.
Had it removed while her own mother was fighting brain cancer.
Wow, this just sucks for that family.
Fast forward to this year, Maria got more devastating news. She had stage 2 pancreatic cancer.
She just can't shake that cancer. It just keeps on coming back.
Now, after she says God granted her a miracle and post-surgery, she is happy to report she is cancer-free and about to become a mom for the first time.
Kaboom! Boo, look at her. Look at Hoda praying.
Maria, first of all, I'm so happy to see you glowing. I know that you can tell when someone's healing by what they're giving off. Let's go back to the pre-pancreatic cancer diagnosis. Was there something you were feeling that told you your body was off?
Yeah, I mean, listen, last June I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and I was like,
Okay, so you're the picture of health, right?
have this. There's no way I have this.
Yeah.
And then I had this.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal with it. And I dealt with it quietly. I was in such shock. I was more devastated by that because I'd watch my dad almost die on the regular every day of low blood sugar attacks. So I just thought, how am I going to live? My poor husband is going to have to be by my side watching me all the time.
Right.
And so I went through it
Poor husband.
with my dad. He knew how to help me. We had the whole summer in Connecticut.
There are tears coming up here somewhere.
I got used to it. And then at some point in the fall, I remember being on a plane and I had eaten farro salad.
Yeah.
And I had this excruciating pain. It was
Look at this. Look at her. She's got an M there.
really, really painful. I didn't think I was going to make it through the flight. And I thought maybe just the farro aggravated me. Maybe I'm getting gluten intolerant. I don't know.
Something, yeah.
And then in November, I had excruciating abdominal pain again, coupled with TMI, sorry friends, should we say loose stool for a month and a half? And I did all the appropriate things.
No, we shouldn't.
I did all the stool tests, nothing came back, went to the hospital, they did a CAT scan. Everything was unremarkable.
Normal, right.
That's very sad. Not very remarkable.
And anytime I complained about it thereafter, it was like, well, we just scanned and everything is fine. But I kept feeling over here, my upper left quadrant, this throbbing.
Something was bothering, yeah.
It's Robin in there. Something's bothering you. She's such a great listener.
And something was wrong. So I started looking into thermography. I was like, I was trying to investigate. How do I find out what this is? And I would ask everybody,
Or where did it come from?
what could this be? What could this be? And I just don't think it's easy for anybody to look at someone like me and think, oh, I think it's pancreas cancer.
Yeah.
You know, so just like nobody would have thought it was a brain tumor.
Sure.
So
Exactly. Just that you don't look like the type.
it wasn't until I went to Anastasia Soar's house for her birthday. And this woman, Alina, came up to me and she was like, we have this new facility called Prenuvo in LA. I need you to come. You have to come get an MRI.
Like a full body
And
MRI.
she was grabbing me by the shoulders and she was aggressive. And I said, okay.
Okay, just leave me alone. Boop.
Hey.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And she's like, I've been trying to reach out to your producers at Heal Squad and they haven't gotten back to me. And, they're trying to get health influencers around this product. I was like, okay. So I scheduled it in January and that's when I found out.
So you did a full body scan.
Full body scan. Look at Hoda go. Look at you go, Hoda.
An MRI scan that the other scans didn't pick up, and you found out that you had pancreatic cancer.
Well, now I know that you also have to know, by the way, friends, you have to know what scans do what. So an MRI is different than a CAT scan, is different than an ultrasound, and some things are better in one of those buckets.
Right. And an MRI was what you needed at the time.
For that specific thing.
So when you hear pancreatic cancer, everybody freaks out. That's the illness that is the worst one to get.
Yeah.
So
It's the worst.
you must have been devastated. But as you sit here, you're cancer-free.
Here are the tears.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, when we were in Pernuvo's offices and the guy was going through the radiologist was going through the whole scan of the body, we're getting closer to the end. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
okay, I'm starting to feel relieved. We're getting there. And he's like, oh. And the mask kept persisting in every image. He goes, you need to go to the hospital right away. And he's like, white as a ghost, and he's shaking. And I'm like, my eyes started to well, and I just looked at him. I go, so I'm a goner. Cool. Like,
You're a goner.
just kind of go to jokes fast, but it was not a good joke.
Yeah.
And all that kept flashing through
The goner joke, it just plays every time.
my head was my baby. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is going to happen to me, because when it's on your pancreas, like you're not going to be okay. And so I just held it together. I focused on consoling him because he was so upset. And I said, no, thank you for telling me. And I texted Dr. Aaron.
Okay, so those are the tears. We had to go a long way for the tears. But, cancer seems to run in her family or whatever. I don't know what they're eating or what the issues are, what or what it is. 10-year-old children were found working at a Louisville McDonald's until 2 a.m. Well, that's legal. So that's going to cause some problems. Just for Us director Adam Brace dead at 43 weeks before Broadway debut. Again, I'll be covering this stuff pretty soon on my Hollywood Celebrities Dropping Like Flies. It doesn't appear to be that there's some sort of cause of death here.
We gotta go, Kitty. What? We gotta go. Hi, J-Lo. Yeah. We gotta go, Kitty.
It's so weird. There's some meat on that burger, Katie.
It has been designed to enable social interaction between multiple GZI arms wearers, such as an exchange of arms. This paper explores possible interactions between digital cyborgs and a cyborg society through the designing of GZI arms.
Okay, well, I don't really want extra arms. We can see where it'd be an advantage, but, no thanks. I came to U.S. as a 90-day fiancé. So was this a mail-order bride or something? 2 weeks after getting permission to work, I found out I had cancer. And so there's her husband, Anna Tower Kovizdia, or whatever, Kovizda, immigrated to the U.S. from Hungary on a fiancé visa. At first, she couldn't work. 2 weeks after she started, she was diagnosed with cancer. She is now getting treatment in Denver. So you hit the jackpot there, buddy. My then fiancé had 90 days to get married, and during that time, I couldn't work. Our marriage went off without a hitch, and once we were wed, I applied for a temporary green card. That critical immigration document would mean I could work again. With COVID-19, I had heard that the process was slow. I don't know what's going on here, but eventually got cancer. Sounds just like a storybook romance. Boy orders rent a mail-order bride. Bride comes to America. Bride gets married. Bride gets cancer. It's a fairy tale. Smartwatches may trigger heart attacks in vulnerable patients. I haven't really been covering it, but this is Year of the Effort, which, we see more and more. But you think about what I started off this video with, the idea that Russia's saying that America through the Ukraine and the Ukraine, whatever, drone, military, whatever it is, took a shot at assassinating Putin, which is, a pretty aggressive act. And what would happen if America came out and claimed or believed that Russia tried to assassinate Biden? I mean, that is, World War III. I mean, that's, ground war at least, ground troops, and then escalating a nuclear war. And the economy is just completely effed, and we all kind of know it. But more than that, look at all the stuff that I just showed you. People are dropping like flies left and right, all the weird stuff. People have just gotten so strange and so weird. Everything's polarized, and I mean, all these things that I covered today and cover every day. The Hollywood morality, the twisted nature of, everything that's going on in the social media world. I mean, it's just people behaving poorly. And, it shows you that our system isn't working. People are getting worse. People aren't getting better. They're not nicer. They're not more spiritual. They're not, we're weaker, like stupider. I mean, it's de-evolution, idiocracy stuff, across the board. There's nothing redeeming about our system. Our system isn't helping us be the best we can be, the best versions of ourselves. Even with all our free time and all the gadgets and technology we have, it's not working to make us better quality people. And certainly, the family breaking down and our disconnect from God and nature. And all of that is a recipe for why the system has to go. The system has to go because it's taking us in the wrong direction, taking us away from our souls and just making us worse and worse, right? And it's just so obviously there across the board. And so it's just a matter of pick your poison because everything is collapsing and people don't really even care. Like, you're scared. Yeah, sure, we're all scared of that. We all, dread it. I mean, whatever you want to say, to whatever extent. I mean, some people are a little bit more prepared than others. And there are lots of things that you don't want to give up, things that we think we're entitled to, things we don't think we can live without. I mean, there's so many things. I talk about this all the time. So, yeah, that's all there. But deep down, people kind of all want it. Like, people just want it to end, right? Like, it's, there's very few happy people, very few grateful people. And most people are just looking for the Apocalaughs to just wash them away. And you can see it in, everything that is out there in terms of, media and social media. And just, there's very little to inspire a person to say, oh, this is great. I mean, once in a while you see something great, like a great TV show or movie, or something happens great in a sporting event, like something, worth watching, or you hear about heroes, people doing things. There's the stories, but overall, we're either getting better or we're getting worse, right? We're either evolving or we're de-evolving. We're either, rising up to a higher level or we're going down to a lower level, and by every, measurable standard and definition, we're going to a lower level. We're going backwards, and we're worse on every level. And it's the moral breakdown that, that starts it. Like, when you have breakdown in morality, then, that's like the worst thing, because that's human beings who are behaving in a negative way and have negative attitudes and just suck on every level. And when you have that, everything else starts to implode around you because you become more addicted. Society caters to your depravity, and then things just get more and more depraved from there. Like, you introduce some things and they're innocent and, they're a little bit, inappropriate, a little bit risque, taboo or something, but not that bad, not that extreme. But it's like a gateway drug, and before you know it, you got full-out depravity across the board. And people lose a touch with themselves, they lose the touch with their souls and their, what makes you like a high-functioning being. Your intelligence goes, your humanity goes, your ethics and morality, all these things. And so that's where we are now. And we all know it to one extent or another. I mean, everyone kind of knows it and doesn't want to admit it. Like, people are petty, and you go and you find, like, the richest people and, the people who are free from a lot of life's problems and struggles, and they're like the worst people. Like, the more money you get, the more it hurts your ability to be a human being, the more selfish you get, more possessive you get, and you just want more and more. it just never ends, right? It just keeps on growing and growing. And so, like, your desire for more. I mean, it's a sickness. And all of us are, you know, we're all there. And so the apocalypse is upon us. We just don't know it yet. It's already started, like Maria Menounos was talking about her cancer. Like it was there. She had it. And she started feeling pain, and she had, it was there all along. But she started to cry and got upset when she saw she was dreading the MRI results because deep down she knew, she was unconscious of something that she was aware of because your body knows, right? And, she gets the news and she's flipping out or whatever, somehow she survived it or whatever. But, it's terminal type of situation. And we just haven't got the bad news yet. Like we have, most people aren't aware of it. Like people just don't know. Ignorance is bliss because, that's where we are right now. We're in the ignorance is bliss phase because not knowing what we know, the majority of people, and the system looks like it's still cranking along. And until it stops, then, well, it's still going, right? And, it's no reason to worry about or stress about it. You can prepare as best you can, but at least mentally prepare yourself for it. And then once it hits, then everyone has to deal, right? But people are aware. Like if something big happens, we know we're not going to recover. We know we're not going to come together and pull together. Certainly not here in America, and work it out and, figure it out and get it done. It's just not going to happen. It's too divided and too, people are too weak and entitled and all those things. But anyways, that's about it, right? The apocalypse is upon us, and it's just a matter of time. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.